Bless the Almighty. We are grateful for each and every one of you who are present. I want to say shalom to you who join with us by live stream, and welcome to School of Messiah Bible Institute. For those who may be joining with us for the first time, we are in a course called Hebrew language. And so today we will be dealing with the fifth lesson in our Hebrew language course. And for those who need outlines that are present in the class, we have outlines in the front row. You can get an outline. For those who are joining us by live stream, we do ask that you grab a pencil or pen and paper and take down the notes. If you need, however, outlines or desire to have outlines from us, you can email us and we will send you an email of the outline. Our email address is BIMCI777@gmail.com. Again, our email is BIMCI777@gmail.com. So for those of you who are with us today by live stream and you desire to have an outline for this lesson that we're covering, you can email us and we will send you a PDF file of an outline for you to have for your studies. Now, before we begin, let us open with a word of prayer. Abinu Melkeinu, we bless you and thank you for this opportunity to provide the teaching for this class as we are learning the Hebrew language and the benefits of it for the purposes of the study of the scriptures to obtain a most accurate understanding of the text of your word, O Most High. We do pray that you would guide and direct in the teaching and that the students would have an open ear, mind, and heart to receive the teaching and apply the principles and concepts so that they may know how to understand the language and derive its meaning for divine revelation of the scripture text. Now, Abba, we do thank you in advance in Messiah's name. Amen. All right. For those of you who have done lesson 4, I trust that you have completed your assignments. And if you have found the assignments to be challenging, then we can talk after class and go over some of those challenges. But if you have those assignments completed, then by all means have them ready. You can place them on the front row chair and have it available for me to pick up. With lesson 5 also has an assignment associated with that as well. And that assignment is in the outline with the various exercises that you are to complete. Today, we're going to be looking at nouns, adjectives, and plurals. I do want to revisit briefly lesson 4, just to go over some of the things that we covered there. In lesson 4, we looked at adjectives, both the masculine and feminine adjectives, and we also looked at nouns. And I trust that you who were here last Shabbat in class, that you had opportunity to read through those adjectives and nouns, all of those words. I trust that you were able to also be able to phonetically sound out these words in Hebrew. That's something that you definitely want to do. You want to practice phonetically sounding out each of the letters. And if I might ask, are any having trouble with phonetically sounding out the letters? Where when you see the letter, you're able to phonetically pronounce it. Are you all being able to do it with ease, or are there some issues that you're having?
If I know the letter.
All right, if you know the letter. Okay. So when you see the letter, you want to be able to see it, recognize it, and then pronounce it. That's the thing that you want to do. That's important. So you want to be doing that, spending some time doing that. Are there any letters that you find that are difficult to pronounce? Maybe I can assist with that if there are some. Anyone? No? Huh?
I would think all of it's hard to make.
All of it's hard? All right. Well, what I would suggest is begin by taking 4 letters at a time. You start with the Aleph. You want to recognize what the Aleph looks like, and you want to write the letters. Write the letters in both the block script and in the paleo script. Now, for those of you who have the ancient lettering system chart, you all remember this chart? Okay, this was in lesson 2. What you want to do, you want to take the chart. You want to use this as a ready reference at all times. This is what's going to help you to readily be able to identify the letters. But you want to begin writing them. Take a page, write down all 22 letters. Now you know that there are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. How many? 22. So you want to remember that there are 22. But this chart right here is what you want to use. You want to use this chart so that you can readily identify the Hebrew letters, and then you want to phonetically sound each letter out. That's important, all right? Because when you begin to start reading text, you'll see it and you want to pronounce it, all right? So my suggestion, take about 5 letters at a time. You can start with the Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, and Hey. Start with those. Then you come to the next 5. Wav, Zan, Het, Tet, Yod. Okay?
Where are we on this?
We're reviewing.
Oh.
We're reviewing. We're just going over some things right now with regards to the phonetically pronouncing the letters and learning how to do that. So the more you do it, the better you become. But you want to do it. And you start there. Now, that's why I asked if there are some letters that you don't recognize. Then you want to say, hey, I don't recognize this letter. What you can do, write down the letter, put the name of the letter next to it, put the sound of the letter next to it. But this chart, it has all of that information there, all of the columns. So you want to keep this handy. Actually, I would suggest that you get a white folder, put this chart in front of the white folder, and then refer to it. Look at it. And as you get more comfortable with phonetically sounding out the letters, you'll begin to read. Like if we take the first couple letters of the Hebrew alphabet, that's the Aleph and the Beit. Aleph has the A sound, what we would call the A sound. And the Beit has the B sound or the B sound. Now, I do know that most of you are familiar with what the letters mean. Such as the Aleph is an ox head. It means strength or power or might. Aleph. Then you have the Beit. Beit is a floor plan of a house. Looking at the Paleo-Hebrew is where we are able to actually identify that it is a floor plan of a house. The block script Hebrew, which in reality is Aramaic script with Hebrew phonetics, that's what it actually is. The block script, it doesn't really give you a picture of a floor plan of a house. But the Paleo-Hebrew of the Beit, it actually gives you a floor plan of a tent. That's the idea of it. So we look at that to know the meanings, but it's important that you know how to pronounce it. If we put the Aleph and the Beit together, that's what you got, the A and the B sound. How do you pronounce the A and the B sound together? Sister Maisha, how would you pronounce that? Come on, say it. Ab. Yeah, Ab. That's where we get, that's how we get the term Ab means father.
And it's with the B, right?
If you say, that's a B sound. The Beit is a B sound. So if we put the Aleph and the Beit together, we pronounce it as Ab. The word Ab, it is translated as father in our English vernacular, but the meaning of it is larger than that, because what it really means is the strong one of the house, or the strength of the house, or the power of the house. That's what it literally means. So the one who is the strong one of the house, you know, like in the text where it says, talks about strong man of the house. You've heard that expression? That's what the actual meaning of the letters Ab mean. It means strength of the house. So the father, or what we call father in English, Ab in Hebrew, it means the strength of the house. That's what it means. So we want to know how to phonetically sound out the letters, while at the same time we are learning the actual meaning of the letters. So this Hebrew course that we are providing, I'm not doing it in the standard way. What I'm doing is I'm combining the phonetics along with looking at the Paleo-Hebrew and providing the meanings of the letters, so that as you phonetically pronounce these words, you are also learning how to find the meaning or translate. That's what you do. With Hebrew is different from Greek. Hebrew is a concrete language. You're looking at pictures. So the definition of a Hebrew word is based upon the meaning of the pictures or the letters. That's how the meanings are derived. That's the way in which humans understood what was being conveyed because of the pictures. The Greek culture changed things up. They have an abstract way of presenting language where you'll have a word, but then you will have to go and find the definition. We call that a dictionary. That was created from the Greek framework. Hebrew is different. If you know what the letter means as you look at each letter of a word. That's how you develop the definition. So you don't need a dictionary. When you have a Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, I'm not familiar with Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. Most of us are. This is what Strong's did. And when you look at a Hebrew word, one Hebrew word can have a variety of definitions because it contains a root meaning with various applications depending on how it is placed in a particular sentence or narrative. All right? So those are some things that are important. I'll give you an example, and then we're going to dive into this. One of the examples of a particular Hebrew root, and we dealt with this about, I think, maybe a year ago with a word that we were teaching from in one of our teachings, and the idea of the root word has to do with hand to mouth. Okay, I don't know if any of you all remember that, but it has to do with hand to mouth. Now, when you have the letters of a word which means hand to mouth, by looking at the meanings, hand to mouth, which means you would have the yod, which is the hand working, and you have the pay, which is the mouth. Hand to mouth can have a number of things implied, because putting the hand to mouth, you can feed yourself. So there's a word called nourishment from that word. Another thing that you can do, which is a function of hand to mouth, is you can hit someone. So the word strike also is applied just as well from the same Hebrew root. So you get the idea? But the original root meaning is hand to mouth. So when we look at how these words are used in a particular context, that's going to determine the meaning. So what's important is that we have to always be mindful that we understand the context of a Hebrew word when it is in a particular sentence. Because with various translations that we have, and I have a lot of translations, I'm one who sticks to the older translations because I trust the translators of the ancient time, in particular the Israelite translators. And what happens is that you are able to discover what their thinking was when they were translating a word into another language. The more recent translations, and some of the English translations, I've noticed that there are different words that come about. And with the example that I gave, when I was doing the teaching in the Septuagint, that word that is for nourishment, the Hebrew word for nourishment, that's what the word that was used in the Septuagint translation. But in a later translation, the word that was used, same root word, same verse, was to strike or hit. And so when you're looking at translations and you're saying, well, why is this word here and this word there? So then you have to examine the text a little further and get the idea of which one was used. And because I have a bent to the more ancient translators that go back, say, about 300 or 400 years, that's why I use the Septuagint, because it's an older translation which comes from a older Hebrew source, but yet the translators of the Hebrew to the Greek were actually Hebrew scholars from Jerusalem who did it. So they knew what they wanted to convey when they translated it into the Greek. But anyway, those are some things that you know you want to think about. So anyway, we looked at in lesson 4, we looked at nouns and we looked at also adjectives. We dealt with the fact that the adjective always follows the noun. You all remember that? The noun is first. Noun is a person, place, or thing. Adjective describes the noun. We looked at the word good, which is tov, and we looked at the noun that preceded it. So like if I was to say a good man, when we look at that in our English language, we would think that, we would have to put the word in Hebrew for good first and then the noun. Doesn't work that way. The adjective follows the noun. So if we have good man, we would have to say ish tov. Ish is man, tov is good. That's how it would have to be. If we're going to say good woman or a good woman, we would have to say isha, which is the word for woman, tova. So we had both also masculine adjectives that we looked at. We had feminine adjectives that we looked at. Do you all remember that? Mm-hmm. So now, what was one of the major differences between the masculine and the feminine as it had to do with words and adjectives? Anyone remember?
Hay's at the end.
Good. For a feminine word, you will find most instances a hey at the end of the word or the tau at the end of the word. That denotes feminine. So when you don't find those two letters at the end, then you can just deduce that it is a masculine. So those are some things that we want to remember, okay? And the reason why it is important to know that, especially when we start looking at things like names. For example, Yahshua, for example, okay? We take Yahshua, or better yet, say we take the name of the Almighty, Yahuah, YHWH. Notice that there's a hey at the end of that. The name of the Almighty is feminine as a name. And there are many names of males in Hebrew, but they are actually feminine with feminine endings. All right? Like Jeremiah, we call Isaiah, you know, Josiah. All of those names end with the hey. They are all feminine names, but they are given to males. And that's something that's very common in Hebrew. You'll find that a lot. Now, within the culture, the difference is already known. We know this is a male, it's not a female, but the name is feminine because it ends in the hey. So say, for example, when you're doing a translation, here's a good one right here. When they were first translating the Hebrew into the Greek text with the Septuagint, you know how, like in the scriptures, it has kurios in Greek, which means Lord? The first translations were not done that way. They actually transliterated the name of the Almighty into the Greek language. They used the iota, and I'm going to show you this. I think that we all would really appreciate this. Now, the reason why I'm taking my time going over this before I plunge right into lesson 5 is because lesson 5 is a very simple lesson for what we're going to go into, and I'll probably need to go over maybe a couple of the words to show how the nouns and adjectives become plural with the definite article, because we've already covered the definite article. Over in, I believe it was lesson 3, we covered the definite article and the conjunction Conjunction and definite article, that was in lesson 3. But I want to show this. So when we look at the Yod, Hey, Wow, Hey. Okay, so since we have to do this in the when it's in Greek, all right. So you all see this right here? Now here's the Hebrew. The Hebrew is the Yod, Hey, Wav, and the Hey. So we have that. I'm just going to bring it to the side. We have that here. This is the Hebrew. When you translate into another language, and since Greek is the first translation of the Hebrew scriptures, when they translate it, they do what's called a transliteration. So you find the equivalent letter in another language. Now, if you have your chart, you'll notice that the equivalent letter of the Yod with respect to the Greek is the iota, what we call the I. It's the iota. So, transliteration, Yod, Iot. All right? The letter actually sounds the same because the Yod is also called the Yut, Yod. So when you say iota, it's basically the same letter, right? So here you have the iota. The hey as a vowel, because we've already talked about vowels, and we discussed how that while much of the time when Hebrew is taught, they tell you that there are no vowels in the Hebrew language, and that there are vowel designations that give you the vowels. But we discovered, based upon what Josephus told us, that the name of the Almighty is composed of 4 vowels, right? You all remember that? Okay, so all of these function not only as consonants, but as vowels. Now, as a vowel, the hey has the ah sound as a vowel. You all remember that? So the ah sound as a vowel gives you the ah sound in Greek, which comes from the alpha. So this is transliterating here and here. And the wav, as a vowel, it has the o or u sound. This is the omega in the Greek. It has the o sound. So what they did, they transliterated this, and the iota, alpha, and omega is the transliteration of Yahuah when they translated the Hebrew into the Greek. This was in the original translations of the Septuagint. And there's manuscripts, and I can show you pictures of all of that. I didn't put them up today, but what I'm trying to show you is how that when translating is done, this is how it's done. But notice there's not a letter here for this other hey. I didn't put a letter there. And there's a reason why there's not one there. Because in the Greek language, if you have the ah at the end, it's feminine. The same as in Latin, because Latin and Greek, they are sister languages. They're cousins. The Greeks and the Latins are actually cousins. They're brothers. They come from the same line, from Yavon. Okay? But the reason why there's not a letter there, and when they translated that, they didn't put a letter there, is because if they put the ah on the end, Yahuah would be a woman to the Greek mind. Does that make sense?
And this is purposeful. This is purposeful. Even in English translations of Aramaic, where like if you look in one of your Aramaic translations, Etheridge, if you look in Etheridge, Aramaic translation of the New Testament, you'll find that it translates Yahshua in the Aramaic Hebrew as Yeshu. That's how it says it. Why does it say Yeshu and not Yeshua? Well, to the 19th century English person, it would indicate that he's female. So when you see translations that just say Yeshu and it's coming from an Aramaic or Hebrew, it is because they want to make sure that the person is seen as masculine. Does it make sense to everybody? Okay? That's why you have Iesus in Greek and not Iesua, because it's a literal letter for letter transliteration. When you look at Yahushua, it's a letter for letter transliteration, but at the end, they do not give the letter, which is equivalent to the Ein, at the end, because then Messiah would be seen as a female. Okay? So the way that they deal with that, they either remove the word, remove the letter altogether, or they will put a sigma at the end. That's where you get the s. So instead of it being ua, it's us. Okay? But I wanted to show this because when we deal with the letters in the Hebrew and when they're translated, this is what we get. Now, let's dive into this because we're dealing with grammar and we're going over some points here. Today, we're going to kind of touch on the same things that we touched on in lesson 4, except we're going to look at plurals. That's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at plurals. So here with the vocabulary, we're looking at these nouns, adjectives. Here's the masculine nouns and adjectives. Over here on the side, we have the word for uncle, right here. All right, we have the Dalit, Wab Dalit. And this is an uncle. But as a plural, masculine, notice at the end, we have the Yod Mem. The Yod Mem. The Yod Mem on the end of a word makes this to be plural. So the plurals for masculine, you put the Yod Mem on the end of it. Word for uncle is Dod, Dodim. That's uncle. Okay? Here we have the word sus. It means a horse. Sus. This right here, this letter right here is called the Samic. It's the Samic. We have the Wav. Wav has the O and the U. So in this case, it's the U. So it's sus. That's horse. Su-sim. Yod Mem. Yod Mem on the end is the E. Yod is the E. Mem is the M. Yod Mem. So we have Susim. This is the plural. Here we have the word for song. We have the Shin, the Yod, and the Resh. So we have what is regarded as Sir. Sirim. That's song. songs over here on the end. Now, here we have this word here. We have the, I'm trying to figure out what that is. That's the Gimel. Gimel and the Wav and the Yod. That's the Goy. Goy, G or E. Gimel, G sound. Wav, O. Yod, I. Goy. Goy is a term that refers to a nation. Goy is a term that also refers to Gentile. So you know how sometimes when we may read scripture and we may say either Gentiles or nations, that's Goy in Hebrew. So if we're going to say nations or Gentiles, we'll say Goyim. Now, because there's a yod already at the end of the word, we don't need to add another yod with the mem. Okay? It's already a yod at the end, so we just add the mem, and it's Goyim. So the term Goyim, it means nations or Gentiles. Okay? Now, these are all masculine for nouns and adjectives. All right? Here we have the word Tob. We have the Tet, the Wav, and the Beit. Ta, O, remember the Wav? Because we're not dealing with the vowel designations underneath. We're not doing that. We're not looking at that. Because we know what the vowels are. We know the letters that act as vowels along with being consonants. So when we see them, we pronounce them. Okay? Got it? So here, this is Ta'ob. Okay? See that, Deaconess? Ta'ob. Tet. Wav has the O or U sound. Ta'ob. We read it the same way as if we're reading English letters. No different. You just need to know the sounds. You need to know where the vowels are and recognize the vowels. So this is Tob, which means good. But now we're going to make this plural. Okay? To make it plural, we have to put the yod and the mem on the end right here to make this plural. Now, one might say, how do you make the word good plural? You know, we don't, in English, we don't use the word good as plural. We don't say goods. Well, I guess you could say goods.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
you could say goods.
Got it back.
We could. Goods, when it's used as a noun, it can be plural. However, in the case that we're dealing with, more than likely, we're going to use this word good as an adjective. Okay? So in that sense, we don't see it as goods in that sense. But the reason why we're doing it is because when we put the adjectives and the nouns together, we're going to have to apply a principle that, you know, we're not really accustomed to, you know, when we deal with language. Because what happens is that if the noun has the plural designation, then the adjective also has the plural designation. That makes sense to everybody? So I'm just going to show you something just ahead of time. If we want to say, like a good song, for example, we would have to put the word for song in plural first, which would be songs, and then it will be followed by this word for good. Now, when we're speaking in English, we will say good songs. We don't say goods songs. But in Hebrew, you have to show the plural designation on the adjective just as you do on the noun. So if your noun is plural, your adjective also has to have a plural designation. That's just the rule. So if we're going to say good songs, the way we would structure that, it would be Sirim Tovim. That's how we would structure it. Okay? We would not say Sirim Tov. We wouldn't say that. We wouldn't leave it as that. I mean, our minds would think, well, it means good songs. You have to put a plural designation on the adjective in the same way that you would have plural designation on the noun. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Because that's what we're going to be looking at next. So, here's some other words where they have the singular and then the plural. Big, great, large. That is Gadol. Gadol. You know how we say a Kohen Gadol for high priest? Gadol. This is the Gimel, Dalet, Wav, Lamed. Gadol. Gadol. Okay? So, this word Gadol, it means big, great, large. If we connect it with a word that has a plural designation, you would have to say Gadolim. Okay? And that's when it's associated with these words that are masculine. Okay, when we deal with feminine words, then it changes up. The ending on words that are feminine, you have the ot, which is the wav tal. Wav tal on the end of a word has a feminine designation. So go ahead and scroll it up. All right, here we go. So feminine nouns and adjectives. All right. So here we have an aunt. The aunt, she is called Doda. Dalet, Wav, Dalet, Hey. Remember, feminine, remember this, feminine words have the hey on the end, or it has the tau on the end. That's how you're able to recognize that there is a feminine designation. You all remember that? All right, that's important to remember. So we have the Dalet, Wav, Dalet, Hey. Da, O, da, a. Doda. Whereas uncle is Dod, Doda is aunt. Okay? Because it's in the feminine. Now, how do we say aunts? Here we have Dod, Ot. The Wav, Tau on the end, which is pronounced Ot. Can everybody say Ot?
Oat.
Like oatmeal? Okay? I'm just trying to help us out so we can kind of get the, you know, how you pronounce it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like you say oat, like oatmeal, oat. Oat, yes. Wav, tav. Wav has the O. Remember, it is as a vowel. The wav has the O and the U. For a feminine designation, O. O in the t, oat. Like OT, oat. So we have Dalet, Wav, Dalet. That's Dod, Ot. Dodo. That's how you say aunts in plural. Okay? Now, the female horse is called a mare. We normally don't hear that word often when we think of horses, but the female horse is called a mare. All right? So the mare is called Susa. Susa. That's a female horse. Susa. Right? How many of you are familiar with the Persian city of Susa?
Yeah. That's all. Yeah.
Yes, it's named after, means female horse. And if you didn't know, the language of those Persians, they're Semitic languages. They spoke Aramaic. All right? So, Susa, there's a hay on the end. That's where we get the ah from. The reason why we get the ah from the hay is because the hay, when it's here, has a sound of a vowel. It has a vowel sound. That's why you have the ah and not ha. It's not sus-ha, susa. Because the hay acts as a vowel. This is one of the vowels, the hay. Right? Over here it will be sus-ot. Now, for a horse, it will be susim for horses. The im, the yod mem on the end, has the plural designation. Here, it's sus-ot. Now what happens, what you start to see happening is that when these feminine singular words become plural, the hay is dropped. That's something that you want to notice, okay? The hay is dropped. And so what you have is you have the basic masculine with the plural feminine ending, okay? Like blessing, barakah. This is the bait, the resh, the kaf, and the hay. Okay? Bait, resh, kaf, and the hay. Now, if we had the Paleo Hebrew, you will be able to see greater distinctions with the letters, because the letters give you the pictures. It's like the kaf would be like a hand like this, okay? However, it looks like a backwards C right here in the block script, all right? So, this is Beit Resh Kaf Hey, Barakah, Barakah. Barakah is feminine for blessing. Now, what happens when you take barakah and you put the wav tav on the end? Ot. How's that pronounced? The hay is gone, so you just have barak ot. Say that again. Barakot. Barakot. Hear that? Barakot. Barakot. All right? That's the word for blessing in plural, barakot. So when we are talking about the blessings of the Almighty and we use the term barakot, that's this. Okay? Commandment. Most of us shouldn't know this word by hearing it, but now you're going to see the letters. Here's the mem, m. Here's the tazadi, the zadi. All right? The way you pronounce the tazadi is like a TS, but it's pronounced more like a Z. But you want to remember tuzza, because there is a letter called the zayin that has the z sound. So you gotta make that designation, okay? Everybody catch that? Mm-hmm. So when you pronounce this would be mit, because you have the tizza. Mit And then you have the Wav, which is the O, okay? And then you have the Hey. Mitzvah. 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 That's how you would actually pronounce it. Now, because of some of the changes that have occurred in the Hebrew language within the rabbinic Jewish framework, in this particular instance, this Wav takes on a V sound. Now we know that there was no V in the Hebrew language prior to the 200 CE. In other words, in Messiah's day, they did not know of a word with the V sound in it. Everybody understand that? They didn't know. There was no word. So when you hear me referring to King Dawid, Dawid would not know his name as David. Yeah. They didn't have a V. I'm serious. In our thinking, because of what we're accustomed to, we are accustomed to certain changes that have occurred after, post HaMashiach, that were never there. And sometimes having to go back and to see things from that perspective, it takes some adjustment. All right? But this particular word, this would be mitzvah. That's how you would say it. Mitzvah. Because the wav is a vowel. Anytime you see it in the middle of a word, it acts as a vowel. Now over here, we have the mim, zadi, we have the wav and the o. That would be mitzvah or mitzvah. That's how you would say it, primarily in the more ancient form of Hebrew. The way it is pronounced in Hebrew, with the changes that have occurred with the introduction of the V sound, it will be called mitzvot. What you will find me doing is pronouncing these letters in the manner in which it would have been pronounced prior to the introduction of the Vav. All right? But that's the word for commandment. This is commandment. Mitzvah. This is commandments. Mitzvot. That's commandments, because the oath is on the end. All right, scroll it up. We're going to breeze through this real quick. So here we have other singulars in plurals. These are all singulars in plurals for feminine words. Feminine words. And here we have the wav, tav on the end of all of those with the feminine plural designations. Now here is where we have the nouns and the adjectives together. All right? And in this instance, we have black horses. So in Hebrew, the way that we say that, we always put the noun first. So we have susim, since this is masculine, susim, yod mem is the plural masculine. Horse, sus, im means horses. But now we have the adjective, which describes the horse. The word for black in Hebrew is shechorim. Shechor is the word for black in Hebrew. We have the sheen, the chet. Now, how many of you can pronounce the chet? Try it. Act like you're hacking. You know, like when you want to spit and you want to, you know? All right? That's guttural. No, I'm telling you the truth. It's guttural. That's what you have to do. Can you do that? Can you do it? You got it? Yeah, you? Yeah? All right. So what you say is chet. Got it? Everybody, you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, you know, you're trying to get people to get loogies. You know, hack up loogies. No, I'm trying to get you accustomed to pronouncing the letters. And you gotta loosen yourself up so you're not afraid of thinking you're gonna make a mistake. Just do it. It takes practice. And the more you do it, the better you get. All right? So the het, this letter right here, the het, it looks like the hay. The block script of it looks like the hay. But this line goes all the way up on both sides. Whereas with the hay, there's an opening right here. See, like here, there's an opening right here. Got it? I'm going to give you an example. So you can see it. See what I'm talking about. All right, see this? This is a hay. This is a het.
Okay.
You got that?
Mm-hmm.
This is the block script. But this is the difference. So they both look very similar, except the het is closed off, the hay is not. All right? You see that? So that's important that you want to note, because you want to be able to note that difference, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So Shekor, we have the sheen, the het, the wav, the resh. So you have Shekor, Shekor. Got it? Shekor. You know, like how, and you know, somebody probably laughed because I'm going to use this, like Tupac Shakur. Shakur, think of it like that. Shakur, okay? Shekor, Shekor. That means black in Hebrew. Shekor. So because this word Shekor is attached to this plural word, Susim, you have to put the Yod Mem on the end. So it's Shekorim. Shekorim. So we have Susim Shekorim. That means black horses. Okay? These are how you would put the nouns and adjectives together. When you put nouns and adjectives together and they are plural, you have to have a plural designation on the end of the adjective as well as on the end of the noun. All right? Everybody catch that? Mm-hmm. Got that? Okay. So here we have small trees. Anybody know what the name of a tree is in Hebrew? Eights. Eights. Here we go. We have the ayin. Now the ayin in the Paleo Hebrew is actually an I. You all know that, right? The ayin in Hebrew is actually an I. So when we think of the I, it actually comes from the sound of the Hebrew word ayin. I. And it looks like that. That's exactly what it is. And it means to look. But in the block script, it looks like that. I'll show you that. So the word that we're looking at for tree, it has the ayin, the zadi right here. The ayin and the zadi together. So you have the a, for the ayin is the e, and then the zadi is the tz, eight, eights. Like saying eights, you know, like the number 8 with a plural, like eights. Mm-hmm. That's how you pronounce this. The ayin and the zadi. All right? That's how that would be pronounced. And since it's trees and it's masculine, we will call this eitzim. 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 All right? Now, this right here, this is the Paleo Hebrew right here. This right here is the block script. This is the ayin in the block script. This is the Paleo Hebrew. Sometimes the actual middle part, when you go to the most ancient Paleo Hebrew, it actually has the eyeball in the middle. All right? Got that? Mm-hmm. Okay. So for a tree is called eitz. Eitzim means trees. Small trees, it is the word katanim. the kuf right here, kuf looks like a, in this instance, it looks like a P. That's what it looks like, the kuf. Now, the kuf is the letter that is the basis of the Q. Because the Q comes to us by way of the Greeks and the Latins. Because remember, we told you that with the Greek letters are the Hebrew letters inverted or flipped. So this right here, that's the kuf in the block script. In the Paleo Hebrew, it looks something like this. It means the sun on the horizon. When it's flipped this way, this gives the idea of the sun on the horizon, all right? But see, if you do this, say you flip that around, and you do it like this, what does that look like? I just flipped the kuf around this way. What does that look like? Right here.
Like a 9.
Like as a letter.
Q.
Q.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
This is the kuf in Hebrew. This is the Q.
Mm-hmm.
Because our English letters come by way of Greek, Latin, English.
Mm-hmm.
English comes from a Roman lettering system. All right? So what we call the Q, it came from the kuf. Except originally, it was flipped. You understand? Got it? Yeah, that's where it comes from. So this letter right here, that's the kuf. See, what you start to find out is that everything that the Greeks did was opposite and backwards of what the Hebrews did. Everything. The whole system. Letters and also writing. They want to do everything different. Opposite. And there's a spiritual message in that as well. But here we have the kuf, the tet, kata, kuf, tet, and we have the nun. Kuf, tet, nun. You have the ka, ta, n, katan. Okay? Katan, im. Katanim means small. Katan means small. So anytime you have, again, the adjective next to a plural noun, you have to give it a plural designation. So small trees, eitzim, katanim. All right? Means small trees. All right, scroll it up. So here we have feminine designations as well. We have black mares. These are the female horses. So we have Susa, right? And we have Sekhorot. Sekhorot. Instead of Sekhorim, we have Sekhorot. Or Shekhorot. I'm sorry. The sheen always has the sh sound. Shekhorot. You have the sheen, the chet, the wav, the resh, and then we have the wav tav, which gives us the ot. Okay? So we have susot, shekhorot, black mares or black horses. All right, let's scroll it up. So I think everyone gets the idea. So some things that we want to take note of when we have nouns with adjectives, okay? From studying the list above, you probably observed that masculine nouns and adjectives generally form their plurals by adding the yod mem. So with the masculines, we have the yod mem, all right? In contrast to the singular. And with the feminine nouns and adjectives, they generally form their plurals by, remember, dropping the hey, right? The hey is on the end of a feminine word.
Mhm.
When it becomes masculine, the hey is dropped. And you put the feminine designation on the end of the word, which is the wav tav. Okay? As stated in lesson 7, the adjective always, the adjective, always follows the noun and always agrees with the noun it qualifies. Okay? So that's something that we want to be mindful of. Go ahead and go up. So these are just other words right here where we see the singular, like in this instance, this is large mare. So we have Susa, Gedula. Large horses is plural. So we have Susim, Gedolim. For the large mares, which is plural, in the feminine, we have Susot, Gedelot. All right. So you can scroll up. These are just words where we have, again, singulars and plurals. All right. You can go up. Yeah, so I think we're pretty much at the end. So these are some things that you just want to remember, and in your outlines, you want to read through the study hints because there is an assignment for you to practice, to translate, and to become more familiar with reading as well as writing and knowing how to put the nouns and the adjectives together. So if it's singular, you have to make sure that your genders are appropriate. And if it's plurals, you have to make sure that the gender plural designation is correct. So if it's masculine plural, you're going to use the yod mem. If it's feminine plural, you're going to use the wav tav. And so that's it. Any questions?
Could you say sister, a singular sister in Hebrew? Because I thought it was akot for sister, but that seems to be a feminine plural. So I'm wondering how you say one sister.
Oh, sister. Okay, let me see.
Because when I looked it up on the internet for sister, it was talking about akot. But now we're learning that the wav tav means plural, feminine.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
I'll have to look that up.
How do you say single sister?
I don't have that in front of me.
Yeah, I feel it. That's all right.
That's a good point. That's a good point. It's like when you say like woman. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, all right.
That's a good one. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Might have to go online and look that up. Just pull it up. I don't have it before me, and it's not coming to my mind that particular word. But there are circumstances where there are words that are like that may end with the wav tav on the end in the word, and sometimes it's sometimes it indicates. In some words, it just indicates that that's the only way the word can be as a plural in some instances.
Yeah.
But we'll look that up.
Yeah, all right.
Any other questions? All right. Well, since there are no other questions, then let us pray. Father Yahuah, we bless you and thank you for this teaching session, and we trust that the information with regards to the grammar, with regards to nouns and plurals and genders in the Hebrew have helped us to be able to learn how to navigate through our reading of the text. I pray, Abba Yah, that all that has been learned has been beneficial, and that it causes each student to be able to have a better grasp on understanding the text of Hebrew. We do thank you and give your name great praise. In the mighty name of Yahshua. Amen. Amen. Well, for those of you who have joined us by live stream, we do thank you so much for your participation. And we trust that you have gleaned and have learned in this particular lesson dealing with nouns and connecting nouns with adjectives, and also learning how to properly put the gender, whether it's a masculine designation or a feminine designation. We trust that these teachings have been helpful to you so that you might be able to read the text of Hebrew and be able to understand it. May the Most High bless you. We do ask that you join us again for our upcoming midweek teaching this Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. The Most High bless you and your families. Shalom, shalom, shalom.
Shalom.